Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different and strange and probably a little bit controversial. We're going to be fitting a fake Greddy boost gauge to the R34. Stick with me. So for those of you that don't know, Greddy or Greddi, depending on how you want to say it, is a leading Japanese brand in the JDM world. They're famous for making top quality JDM tuner parts. Their boost gauges and boost controllers are top tier, good quality products. So you might be wondering why on earth we're going to be messing around with a fake one. So here's the story. I was scrolling through Alibaba one night, because apparently that's what I do when I'm bored, looking at different things, looking at all the random stuff that they sell and copy and make. And I stumbled across these Greddy boost gauges and I was like, surely, absolutely surely they are not accurate. They cannot be accurate. They looked really good. They looked like good quality, but I could tell that they were a bit off. They were only a fraction of the price. I think they were about $30 delivered, give or take. I'll put a link in the description below. And basically my curiosity got the better of me and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna do a science experiment. And here we are today. So let's get one thing straight off the bat. I do not endorse or recommend buying fake products. It hurts the business, it hurts the brand. They're generally not very accurate. They are probably very, very dangerous for your motor or your engine or your car, depending on what you're doing with it. Plus, generally, they can just be a total letdown for the performance of your car. Many big brands and manufacturers put a ton of effort into making their products, making them good quality. But keep in mind, I'm not doing this in any way, shape or form to promote the product. It's purely a science experiment. I want to see how this fake stepper motor boost gauge from China at the cheapest possible price will compare to a mechanical Turbo Smart boost gauge. We already have a mechanical boost gauge in the car from Turbo Smart from when we set up our boost controller. So I thought this is probably a good option to compare the two, just out of curiosity, absolutely no other reason. I do not recommend buying it. It's purely here to watch my video for me to try it and just see how they compare. So here's a big question. Can this knockoff gauge really compete with a genuine mechanical gauge? Or is this knockoff just a piece of junk? We're gonna find out in this video. We're gonna be installing this fake Greddy boost gauge into the car and we're gonna be comparing it side by side to the Turbo Smart mechanical boost gauge. Let's work out if this is a hidden gem or just a piece of junk like we'd expect. Now look, when I first saw this thing, I thought there's absolutely no way that it could work, which is sort of what drew me to it. But I've been wrong before and I'm curious to see what it actually does. I'd love to hear from you guys too. Have you guys taken a chance with the knockoff? Would you ever put a knockoff on your car? Tell me your thoughts below in the comments and tell me if you've tried something that's a knockoff before. I'd love to hear your story. All right, that's enough talk for now. Let's get this fake Greddy boost gauge installed in the car and see what it does. All right, I'm gonna be honest, I've already unboxed the boost gauge. I couldn't wait for filming. So I've already pulled the boost gauge out. I haven't completely unboxed it. There are still some bits and pieces in there that I haven't done, but I did want to sit the boost gauge in the car and just see what it looked like. So this is the boost gauge. Not sure if you can see that on camera. I think that's showing up pretty well. I'm going to be honest, it's got a light up Greddy on the back. It's got 3 plugs, little button. We've got a pretty basic sort of ring cup that the gauge sits in. I'm going to be sitting that up on the dash in the corner near the A-pillar, which is quite close to the Turbo Smart one. So it is a mechanical gauge. This is the box that it came in. It's got a heap of stuff on there that definitely is not included in the box at all. So all the gauges come individually from Alibaba. This is the gauge. It's actually got like a little digital reading down the bottom and a voltage, I believe, and then you've got your stepper motor as well. So on the box, it says that it has a central computer, which it definitely doesn't. The sensors all come separately with each gauge. So you've got all these gauges and they come and plug straight into the gauges, not with this or not with the controller. So obviously they've done a really bad copy of the box. I feel terrible for Greddy. Some information, analog meter display. It's definitely copied straight off the Greddy box. I'm gonna be honest, the box looked pretty bloody good when we got it. Let's have a look at what sensors come in here. So as I said, there is a ton of different ones you can get: oil pressure, core temp, oil temp, RPM, all sorts of different things. So we got the boost, obviously, because that was the only one that I felt safe running on the car. We've got our boost sensor, so we're gonna have to install this in the engine bay. Give it a boost reading, mount it nicely, well, as nice as needed so that it doesn't rattle to bits, which I'm sure it will at its first option. This looks like plugs into the back there, it does. So we've got our boost sensor, we've got our power wiring, We've got a brief instruction manual as well, which I'll show you in a sec. I believe we've got power, ground, lights, and ignition. And we've even got some tube, which I'm definitely 100% not going to use. Lastly, we've got a joiner. So you can buy all these gauges and then link them all together so they are using their own power from each gauge and daisy chaining it to all the other gauges. So we've got a gauge, a joiner wire, we've got our boost solenoid and our power wire, and then obviously this, which we won't be using. We might actually probably use the T-piece, but that's about it. All right, let's work out where we're going to sit this. So logical place would be to keep that boost solenoid up out the way somewhere. We could probably tee off the same boost line that we're getting the feed for the Turbo Smart one, so that we can't have any different boost readings from anywhere else, which they should all be the same, but we could grab it from here. But I'm pretty reluctant to tee into the fuel pressure side of things for a fake gauge. I think it's better off keeping it safe and giving them both the same boost reading, which is from the back of the manifold there, and it can't cause any problems if it does have a slight leak, so it should be good for that. Let's work out where we're going to put the gauge. I've put the Turbo Smart boost gauge back in that we used to set up the boost. That is a mechanical gauge, so there is no ifs or buts about its accuracy. It should be 100% good, being a Turbo Smart is a good brand, and it is mechanical, so no electric stepper motors or anything. Now for our little Greddy science experiment. I'm thinking for now, I'm going to probably install that up here on the A-pillar. It should be pretty simple to get our wiring up through the little crack through here, as it is thin wiring. Should be able to go up the side. We should be able to get both of those in the same spot. If anything, I can stick the Turbo Smart one just underneath the Greddy one, because it is movable. It was only a temporary install. All right, let's start by installing that boost solenoid pressure sensor under the bonnet, and then we'll feed that wiring through, and then we'll start wiring up that gauge. Just a quick look over the instructions. So it's a 270-degree scale around the gauge, which is apparently pretty good and worth mentioning. Install instructions, electrical gauges display. So we've got our sensor wire, we've got our set key, because the gauge does actually go through a ton of different colors, different settings. You can have warnings, or the little digital window, you can change what's in there as well. We've got tons of different things: exhaust temps, air fuel gauge, so you tee into your oxygen sensor wire, tons of different ones. Warning: this unit is designed for 12-volt typical vehicles with negative ground. Discontinue use of this product immediately if there is smoke or a burning odor. If you see smoke in the video, tell me straight away in the comments below and I'll pull it out. All of the other gauges, we've got the ring, how to install it, boost gauge, vacuum gauge, it says T in to signal wire, oil pressure, pretty straightforward. Voltmeter gauge, I don't know why you'd have that in there. We've got a lot of this stuff in the car from factory. All right, that couldn't be any more basic. Let's go and put this sensor in. I'm thinking we're gonna probably just sit this up in the back corner here for now. I'm going to sit that onto the boost solenoid without breaking it, and that's going to be our feed for it, and we're going to tee straight into that same line just down here that runs along to the back of the intake manifold, and then we'll start running this cable all the way, same way as the original one, through the guard and up into the car. So I've been meaning to pull that out for ages, but I've just chopped the wires on it which go into the cab, and I'm going to go and pull this through, and I should be able to pull that whole cable through nice and carefully. Fingers crossed that I don't pull that little plug off though, so I've taped it up really nicely so that pulls through. The only thing is, it's pretty dark in here, so I'm going to roll the car out into the driveway. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but this little red button here, you can actually hold that down and shift into neutral, or shift without having to have the key in the ignition, which is a nice little trick. But we'll roll this car forward out into the driveway, out into the light, and we're going to pull the cable through from down here. I can try and find that cable. Right, tucked up under here, there's a hole and a bung through the firewall, so we should be able to get that cable through. It's our little cable here for the alarm, and then we should be able to pull that through very carefully. And as easy as that, we've got our boost solenoid wire pulled all the way through. So I'm going to pop that side panel back on, and then we're going to start looking at getting some wiring and power for the gauge. Now the plan is to run this wire tucked up out the way around the edge so that it can't interfere with the pedals or anything, and then up along here, so we should be able to hide that up there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this wire into the back of the gauge, and then I can run that nice and tightly down there without getting in the way. We'll get the power wire plugged into the back of that. We may need to extend the power wire a little bit, I think, because it's only going to be short. So yeah, that power wire is probably only about 30 centimeters. So what we'll do is I'm going to strip these, add some wire to them, and then we can grab some power and grounds from underneath the dash. Those extensions are all wired up, soldered up and ready to go. Next thing will be trying to find some signal wires under the dash. So we're going to do some poking with the multimeter. Should be 4 bolts, 3 or 4 bolts I think, to get this bottom part of the dash off. There's a screw over here. There's 2 bolts up here for the bonnet latch, and then this whole part should come pull away. We should be able to get to all of that wiring. So much old wiring up under here that I want to get rid of. We'll get to that eventually though. So what we want to do is we want to find an ignition source. So I'm going to check some of these. We'll power on and off with the key and see if this gives us a signal on and off. And then we'll just find a headlight, which should come out the back of our stalk. So this is our headlights here, which goes into this loom. And we should be able to find a pin out up there. It is hot as hell out here, but we've finally got it all hooked up. In classic Chinese form, on the instructions, it's got the light wire, so for the headlights, and the ignition wire switched. The colors are wrong on the instructions. So now when I switch the all finished and installed. So we've got a little boost sensor neatly fastened up in here. Then inside the cabin we've got both of our boost gauges, so just for testing purposes. We've got the Turbo Smart right next to the Greddy one. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. The Greddy gauge, the fake Greddy gauge, kind of does look cool, but it is very Chinese. So hopefully you can see that pretty good. If I key on with the ignition, it's got a little starting ceremony, and there are 10 different starting ceremonies that it has. So, and then it goes up. Basically at the top here I've got battery voltage, and below that I've got a digital reading of the boost, which is obviously shown up here. Boost is shown in bar, so we've got 1 bar, which is about what, 13.5 or 14 psi. We've got a ton of different things you can do with this thing. Let me just find the little button on the back down here. So push a button, we've got different modes for that digital screen down the bottom. So we're showing battery voltage nice and big, and we've got a little bar graph. Mode 2 is a digital boost readout, so you've got analog on the gauge and digital on the little screen. Got mode 3, which is the one it comes on from factory, and that is battery voltage and turbo sort of stacked on top of each other, so you've got 3 different readings there. Or you can turn it off too, I think. So then we've got a blank screen and just the boost gauge, which doesn't look too bad really. So if I go and just put that back on mode 3 for now. And then next up, we've got RGB. This is very Chinese. So we've got different color. We've got day color, night color. We've got day dimmer. So obviously when you turn the lights on and off, and night dimmer. So day color control. You've got all these different colors: yellow, purple, cyan, RGB, red, green, blue. I'm going to leave it on blue for now. And obviously you can change that for day, night, warnings, everything. So for the warnings, we've got battery high voltage, battery low voltage, turbo, high. And we've got that set at 1 bar, and you can go up in increasements with that and change what it says, which is pretty bloody cool, really. It's surprising that that's even something on here. We've got alarms, all the beeps and beep beeps and beep beep beeps apparently. So much random useless stuff. So peaks, it'll show you what all the peaks were that the gauge has seen. What else was there? There was, oh yeah, so you can zero it. So something we'll need to do is when we first turn the car on, we'll make sure that we've got the same vacuum reading, and it is just above 0.02 kPa at the moment, so it's sort of pretty much zeroed, close enough as it is. What else have we got? Zeroing, and then we've got our starting ceremony, the most random thing. So you saw what it did when it starts up. You can change that. There's 9 different things you can do when it starts up. So if we turn it off, the little closing ceremony, and then when we turn it on, it does all these different little things. That's crazy. And then if I go back to starting, oh, there's another mode 10, and key off, and then we'll key on. That's crazy. All right, I'm going to put that back onto mode 1, which I think was probably the nicer one. And I'll just refresh your memory as to what mode 1 was. So if I key off, and then I key on, it's crazy. And then back up to what your reading is, nice and smoothly. Pretty bloody cool for a $30 gauge. Obviously all of it's useless unless it actually shows the boost, and that's all of our options. So the next thing we need to do is test if it's accurate. That's probably the most important thing. I mean, it can look cool and look pretty and do all this stupid stuff, but if it doesn't actually read the boost, then it's pretty useless. So we're going to go a little bit later. We're going to go for a drive. The car's pretty much put back together now. We're just going to wait for Ollie. Ollie's been away on camp, so I'll wait for him to get back. We'll go for a drive and we'll record some video, and it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what it does with the Turbo Smart gauge. All right, as soon as Ollie's home, we're going to go for a drive and test this out. So next day, Ollie ended up getting back a little bit later than he was planning to get back. I think one of his classmates got left back at camp or back at their sport day or whatever they were doing. So he got back a little bit later than we were hoping. So we didn't get to go for a cruise last night, but we are checking out this view behind us with obviously this view and that view up there. It's pretty amazing. We're on our way to one of Adelaide or South Australia's probably most famous bakeries, the Port Elliot Bakery, which is absolutely amazing. We always try and make our way out there at least once every couple of months. They've got a really cool thing that they do. They have a pie of the month and a donut of the month, and I'll show you exactly what they are once we get there for this month. They look pretty bloody amazing. So we've had a chance to get the car out on the road and give it a bit of a test. First impressions, it works like you would think it would work. It's a slightly delayed compared to the Turbo Smart gauge. It does go up and down, does show pretty accurate boost, although it does seem to be a little bit down on the Turbo Smart boost gauge rating as well. So I think from what I worked out, 0.75 bar is about 10 psi or just over 10 psi, which is what we're running. So with the Turbo Smart hitting 10, it's pretty much right on 7.5 bar. So that side of things seems to be working really well. The only thing is, you can see when I'm just tapping the throttle when we're in vacuum and cruising, if I'm just tapping the throttle, the Turbo Smart gauge definitely reacts a lot quicker, and then that's followed by the fake Greddy gauge. So Turbo Smart sort of goes up, then the Greddy goes up, and then the Turbo Smart goes down, and then the Greddy goes down. I'll let you make up your own opinion if that's something that's important to you or important to me. It's sort of on the fence if I'm 100% honest. I'm not in a racing car. I'm not looking for split second, you know, exact up-to-date information, but in saying that, it is nice to have that as well. And it's, if it's something you rely on, then obviously that you got to take that into account. All right, let's keep cruising. I'll give you some shots of this amazing lookout, which is on the way to the Port Elliot bakery. Port Elliot is down on the southern coast. I'll show you on the map here. Beautiful scenery here. So the pie of the month is a lamb gyros, which sounds absolutely delicious. And the donut of the month is a way over the top donut, the Kinder Bueno chocolate donut, I believe. So I'll show you what they look like when we get there. Pretty epic. All right, let's get to the bakery. We're done and dusted on that testing. I don't know what I've decided out of the TurboSmart or the copy Greddy gauge. It's a pretty hard one. Obviously, I do not recommend any copies or fakes or anything like that because they don't do any favors for anybody. But it appears to work. It is a little bit more delayed, like I said. The TurboSmart is definitely a lot more responsive and direct with my throttle. So when I'm tapping the throttle, I can see the TurboSmart moving out of vacuum or up and down a lot quicker than the stepper motor. But that just might be a stepper motor boost gauge thing that is a little bit slower to react. So I can't comment on that side of things. I'm going to leave it completely up to you. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this gauge. Would you run it for 30 bucks or whatever it was? I'll put a link below. Again, don't recommend anyone buying it. Go buy the real thing if you can afford to buy the real thing, or find another alternative. But it is out there for sale and I can't take it down for sale. I'm going to give you my real world results on installing it and running it and testing it, just out of curiosity more than anything. Bit of a science experiment. That's going to be all for this video, guys. I hope it was slightly enjoyable. I hope you learned something. I hope it satisfied your curiosity like it did with mine. It was just something, again, that I was on the net late at night, saw it, give it a go, see what it does, see what happens. You know, what's the worst that could happen? I was 100% expecting for it to be absolutely terrible, and it is marginally better than terrible. So I mean, for 30 bucks, it might be a goal for some people that can't quite afford to do the full priced genuine item. Again, even buying secondhand genuine is going to be a lot better. And I think for us, something that we'll do is definitely get our hands on a secondhand Greddy gauge or Blitz gauge or HKS gauge or something like that as soon as it pops up. To be honest, I'm probably going to run this just until I find that secondhand gauge. I'm not about to drop another $1,000 or 800 bucks on a brand new JDM branded gauge, which I would absolutely love to do, but unfortunately at the moment we've just got other priorities. So the next big thing, our body kit is here on Friday, this Friday coming. Today's Saturday, so the following week it'll be here, and then we are ready to paint, get the body kit all fitted up, test fitted, adjusted, whatever needs to be done. And then we're doing airbags as well. So we've just got a heap of things that we need to spend money on the car that are a lot higher in the priority list than buying a brand new genuine gauge. So I'm going to keep scrolling Facebook Marketplace and see if a genuine aftermarket brand of some sort pops up, and if it does, I'll jump on it. But for now, I think I'll leave this one in here and see how it goes. It's probably another one of those questions as well as to how long it will last. It might just stop working tomorrow. Who knows? Who knows? No one knows. All right, guys, comment below, like and share the video. It makes a massive difference. Any engagement that you guys do makes a huge difference to the video and the reach. Apart from that, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. See you next time.